Everyone, welcome to NHLRumors.com here up on YouTube, official YouTube plays. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. A lot of big news coming out of the National Hockey League. First, let's start off with big news at Toronto, one of the meccas of the hockey world. Some people think it is the Mecca. Other people think it's Montreal. However, Toronto Maple Leafs fire general manager Brad Treliving. He had a year left on his deal, took over in May of 2023. He's now let go in March 2026 after a tumultuous season for the Maple Leafs, not living up to expectations, not living up to their standard of play. A team that got older and slower under Brad Treliving. This team is not as good as it was, and this general manager now, for the second time, once with the Calgary Flames and now with Toronto Maple Leafs, has failed his team to make it better than when he left. Again, we saw what happened in Calgary with the Johnny Gaudreau when he left. R.I.P. Johnny Gaudreau. Tragic accident, a couple summers ago. We know what happened there. The Matthew Tkachuk trade. You get Jonathan Huberdeau, and you get, obviously, Mackenzie Weegar. Huberdeau was signed to an 8-year deal. He's not living up to that contract. Weegar's now in Utah, so that trade tree is gone. No puns intended there. But you just saw how he mismanaged certain situations in Calgary. Craig Conroy there in Calgary has really cleaned up the mess, got the team younger, faster, quicker. Yeah, they got blown out by Colorado, but it's going to be a lot of growing pains. He comes into Toronto. Brendan Shanahan was still the president of hockey operations. They moved on from Kyle Dubas. Remember, Dubas left this team, again, with the contracts were given out, no move clauses for a lot of the top guys, inherits the Mitch Marner situation. Again, was able to extend Austin Matthews, albeit a 4-year deal. Again, he was able to extend William Nylander. He got John Tavares, Matthew Nyes to sign team-friendly deals. Same with Stolarz. Bringing Chris Tanev. But again, you look at the tenure there for Brad Treliving, got the team older and slower. And again, mismanaging of assets. You trade a first-round pick that's only top 5 protected and Fraser Minten, your top prospect, for Brandon Carlo. Again, not a rental, but it hasn't really lived up to standards, and he was on the trade block this year. Okay, you get Scott Lawton, first-round pick, goes there, and a prospect to Philadelphia. Now you're down 2 draft picks. Now you're down 2 first-round picks for a team that doesn't have a lot in the cupboard, couldn't really trade it first. Now they get off to the sluggish start, and the mismanager Mitch Marner. Now, Mitch Marner, we've documented this here. He played a role in this. He was a little bit petty. Held on to his no-move clause, didn't like the things that happened when Lou Lamoriello was there with its entry-level bonuses. And then the second contract, was a little tough to negotiate. So he played a role in this. But the team is not the same, and they regretted not keeping him around. And there was time for change. Change needed to happen. But the team is not the same team anymore. They're top 4. They're not a top 6. They're missing a top winger on the top line with Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes. They're missing a winger with John Tavares and William Nylander. Their depth is not as good. The offensive ability of this team is just not as good. Brad Treliving just flat out did not improve the team, did not stock the cupboard. The draft picks, the development of players, just not there. Yes, the goaltending is fine, whatever you could say about Stolarz and Wall, but he inherited Wall. Yeah, you signed Stolarz. Okay, that's great. Bill DeBee was inherited. But on the back end, yeah, Chris Tanev, but he's injury prone, may not play again. Brandon Carlo, older player. What are you doing with Morgan Riley? Again, Timothy Liljegren gets traded. Rasmus Sandin was already out the door. Like, the team was just not good. Simone Benoit. Yeah, OEL is a great signing, but this team is just not good enough, and the depth was not there. The team just not performing well. And then the not great returns, right? And you bring in Matias Maccelli, Dakota Joshua, Nick Waugh to replace Mitch Marner. That's just not going to cut it. You can't replace a 100-point scorer. It's impossible. Not in that town. And they had a core 4, core 5. And now there's a lot of question marks. Now, who's going to replace them? They're going to go internal? Are they going to go external? It's going to be a thorough search. Is Pridham part of this thing? Who's going to be the next guy to take over in Toronto? Because there's a lot of questions, maybe more questions than answers. You go Roddy Piper. Every time you think you have an answer, I change the questions. It feels like that's what's going on in Toronto because there's so many question marks. Why was Brad Treliving allowed to handle the trade deadline if they knew they were going to make this move? And according to reports, yes, There was a sense over the weekend from Dave Pagnotta that a change could be happening at the general manager position. Nick Kiprio said the same thing during his Bourne and Kuiper show, that there was a sense, but no one thought it was going to happen an hour and a half before game time on the East Coast. Remember, the Toronto Maple Leafs were out on the West Coast. They were playing the Anaheim Ducks. Again, the Radko Gudas revenge game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Max Domi got his revenge, right? Gudas took his licks for his cheap hit on Austin Matthews, right? And they didn't stay. And speaking of Matthews, what is Matthews' future with this team, right? It's in his hands, as we've been reporting. He's the one that knows, but Maple Leafs management's going to go to him. Keith Pelly's going to go to him. This was a long, hard discussion. This was a long, hard deliberation, a year of analysis for Keith Pelly. He just felt like this team was just not there. They weren't a hard team to play against. You saw it with the Matthews incident. No one stepped up for Matthews. Is that going to play a role in him departing potentially this summer or the following summer? Does he want to be there? All indications are he wants to stay with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But what if this goes off the rails again and his team doesn't make the playoffs? Does he want to stick around? Again, the U.S.-Canada geopolitical thing. That's another factor in the Austin Matthews situation. So what's going to happen? Pelly, the new general manager, is going to have to sit down with Austin and figure out what's going on. Again, he had the knee surgery. Again, he's dealing with the back, the wrist. There's a lot of question marks surrounding Austin Matthews. Is he a part of this future? When the new GM comes in, the questions are going to be answered to guys. Do you want to be here? If not, where do you want to go? What the kinds of returns are we getting for these players? Is it a full-on rebuild? Is it a retool? There's a lot of question marks here because this roster isn't good. And that's unfair to Craig Berube, who's a really good head coach, won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues, right? We know what he can do, but it's just not – it wasn't the right fit. The roster wasn't good. They weren't the same team as when he took over. They're playing a different style, but the pieces didn't match what the coach wanted to do, right? They weren't capable of what they wanted to do. They just didn't have it. And the coach is going to pay a price. All indications are, again, Dave Pagnotta says, all indications are at the end of the season, barring some change, Craig Berube is going to be looking for a new job as well. And that's the anticipated move. Whether that happens now or later. And Brad Treliving got wind of what was going on with Keith Pelly and MLSE. And he basically said, just do it now. Don't save it for the end of the season. If you're going to make the change, just do it now. And that's what has been reported by Elliot Friedman, by Kuiper on Sportsnet during the game on Monday, that, hey, Pelly was making the rounds. It was going around. Treliving just got wind of it and said, you know what, let's just do it. But again, the timing of everything is very odd. An hour and a half before the game, that could shake a locker room. I think Brad Treliving failed the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Keith Pelly felt that he failed him as well. And yeah, they had a common goal to try to win a Stanley Cup, but this team wasn't good enough to even make the playoffs. Toronto Maple Leafs were a fast team, a good team in the regular season, but they just struggle in the playoffs. You got to find that balance between good playoff and regular season team. And no one knows what this team would be doing in the playoffs because they could get bounced again. It's between the ears for them. And that's what we got to be looking at for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Toronto makes the GM move a day after the Vegas Golden Knights decide, all right, well, 8 games left. We're going to pull Lou Lamoriello. Maybe Lou, who knows? Maybe Lou's the senior advisor to Kelly McCrimmon in Vegas. We don't know. I doubt he's on the beach somewhere. But pulls the Lou Lamoriello playbook card, takes the Uno card out, takes the ace in the hole out, fires Bruce Cassidy, and brings in John Tortorella. Torts back behind the bench on a Monday night with the Vegas Golden Knights against his former team, one of his former teams, Vancouver Canucks. So that was the biggest move. Vegas lost Saturday to Washington Capitals and Logan Thompson. Great back and forth game. Well, it wasn't. If you were Vegas down 3-0 early, come back 4-3, then you lose in the shootout. Thompson was jacked up about it. But the message, even though Kelly McCrimmon said on Monday he didn't lose the room, players felt the energy wasn't there. Kelly McCrimmon felt that there wasn't enough energy, enough fight. They weren't the team that won the Stanley Cup. A lot of reports out there from Elliot Friedman saying that Bruce Cassidy and the players were butting heads dating back to when he got there. He's a hard-nosed style coach. But when you win a Stanley Cup, it could be put to the side. But we know what happened in 2024. They lost to Dallas, first round, I'm sorry. And last year they get They lose to the Edmonton Oilers, and then between games 4 and 5, there was more things said. Some of the players did not like what Bruce Cassidy had to say to them. They went to management in the summer. Management backed Cassidy, but this time around, management backed the players, got rid of the coach. And Kelly McCrimmon talked about it. It's about expectations, living up to standards, living up to expectations. And for a team that wants to win a Stanley Cup isn't good enough. And they're going to have more losses in franchise history than wins ever. But again, another team. Look, Kelly McCrimmon is a good general manager. There's no doubt about it. What everybody praises him for being aggressive, moving draft picks, moving prospects to win. But the team is older, it's slower. It's like Toronto, right? Their underlying numbers are good, but Pietrangelo not there anymore. Marchessault not there anymore. Nick Hague not there anymore. Whitecloud not there anymore. Nick Waugh not there anymore. A lot of Golden Misfits not there anymore. William Karlsson's been injured. Goaltending's not good. The goaltending duo, again, that was an issue for Lindy Ruff in New Jersey. That's why part of the reason he got fired. The goaltending let him down, right? The goaltending let Bruce Cassidy down. Again, Kelly McCrimmon, as good as he is, picked the wrong goalie. Yes, you could see Adin Hill won him a Stanley Cup, but Adin Hill hasn't been the same player since that 1.5 series that he did to win a Stanley Cup, right? Series and a half. So they didn't pick Thompson. They keep Hill. What's happened to him? He hasn't found his game. Carter Hart, the answer, maybe. Very surprising. They didn't get a goaltender, didn't really address the center needs, but they still believe that William Karlsson is going to come back. Again, the new LTIR rules really hurting some of these teams that with injuries, Karlsson, if he was regular rules, he would have been out, come back playoffs, whenever you can add, but they couldn't do it. Yeah, you add Nick Dowd, big deal. Not really much there. And again, you change your dynamic up front with Mitch Marner. Jack Eichel, it's more transition team on the back end with Noah Hannafin, with Rasmus Anderson and Anderson. Again, while his contract's probably sitting in a drawer somewhere, maybe they got to renegotiate because things aren't working out for him in Vegas right now. And Kelly McCrimmon likes his goaltending, but doesn't like, and the goalie's got to, he doesn't like the goaltending, but he likes the goaltenders. But something's got to change. Carter Hart, probably should have gotten Jordan Binnington. Despite what he says or doesn't say, it was probably the right move to get a goaltender at the deadline for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Bruce Cassidy, second stint, he's out. Boston, he had the same problems, butting heads with some players. Again, some of the players ran him out of town in that summer of 2022 before he took over and then won a Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, if Craig Berube's out of a job, is that an option for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Toronto Maple Leafs look at Pete DeBoer as well. Do they go younger? Do they go different coach? They go Dan Muse type? Do Toronto go younger, Matthew Darche type GM? Or do they go, do they try to go get Doug Armstrong, Jim Nill, guys like that? Or, again, thorough search for both. Again, Torts is going to be in Vegas, similar to Rick Bowness in Columbus. To the end of the season, they're going to reevaluate things on both sides. Is it the best move? No, but Torts is there to get a spark out of his players. So, again, big news out of the National Hockey League with Toronto Maple Leafs making a change, general manager position. They're going to find a new GM come the summer. Then you got, Bruce Cassidy and the Sundance Kids. No, just kidding. Bruce Cassidy out, John Tortorella in Vegas, trying to roll the die, win a Stanley Cup. There's so much going on. Obviously, Nashville's GM search, they're winding some parties down. Barry Trout's going to step aside at the end of the year. Brad Peterson's been interviewed. They've been going through the Mark Bergevin types, Brendan Shanahan types. And then, again, another general manager type position is going to open potentially in New Jersey, which we wrote about and documented. Do the New Jersey Devils move on from Tom Fitzgerald? Do they move on from Sheldon Keefe? If they move on from Tom Fitzgerald, as reported, they're probably going to go to two positions in management: president of hockey ops or executive, however Montreal does it, executive vice president. You're going to have president of hockey ops. You're going to have a general manager. We see the two-party system working in other teams. I think a lot of teams are going to follow that Montreal model. Again, the Devils, when Lou Lamoriello was there, president and GM. Same with Shiro. Now, same with Fitzgerald. One guy handles everything. You get two people in there. Again, a lot of moving parts for the Devils, but if they move, they bring in a senior advisor that's had GM experience, or an assistant GM with GM experience. That's going to be something to watch with the Devils. How do they evaluate the end of the season? These past 16, 17 games have looked like their first 17 games. So is that enough to save Tom Fitzgerald's job? Or do they bring in somebody above him? But again, it's probably going to be a two-party system moving forward. The fate of Simone Nemec, their defenseman, they want to make some hockey trades. They want to look to make some moves to get better, bring some talent up front. A lot of moving parts. What's going to happen in LA with DJ Smith? He might not stay there. Adam Foote and Patrick Allvin look to be gone. In Vancouver, could Manny Malhotra get a head coaching job? There's so many moving parts as we head to this offseason. But as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season, start of the playoffs, teams, big-time teams, two teams that made a significant trade in the offseason, make significant moves, removing a head coach and one removing a general manager. There's always something happening in the National Hockey League, whether it's 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast or earlier on the West Coast. Stay tuned, NHLRumors.com. Got you covered for everything. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below. Jim Biringer, take care and enjoy the rest of the regular season.